Vasyl Lomachenko has announced his retirement from boxing. He'd been out the ring a long time. There was a lot of bemusement about the way that the sanctioning body that he held a belt for, the IBF, were allowing him to stay champion after so long out the ring. Normally that's the WBC who do things like that. The IBF tend to strip you quick fast. But in the case of Vasyl Lomachenko, for whatever reason, legacy privilege maybe, they allowed him to hold on to it for far too long. Apparently he was recovering from injuries and maybe surgery, I'm not sure. And it was up in the air whether he would continue his boxing career. But no, he's decided to call it a day. He finishes with a record of 21 bouts, 18 wins, 3 defeats. 12 of his 18 wins by knockout or stoppage. He was a fantastic fighter. He was very entertaining to watch. And at one point, many people had him as the #1 pound for pound, or at least top 3. He certainly didn't introduce, but maybe reintroduced Orlando Canizales style footwork to top level boxing. Shout out to those of you who know who Orlando Canizales was. And yeah, that type of footwork, he reintroduced it, repopularized it, along with his countryman and one-time stablemate, Alexander Usyk. And it's interesting, for the longest time, Vasyl Lomachenko, because he is obviously much smaller than Usyk, more nimble, can do things that Usyk, if not can't do at the same speed, right? Because of all this, I want to say the majority of people ranked Vasyl Lomachenko higher on pound-for-pound lists, generally, than they did Alexander Usyk. But now that it's all said and done, and Vasyl Lomachenko is retired, you look back at his career, and there is just no way you could rank him higher than Alexander Usyk. Do you know what I mean? Yes, Lomachenko went up through the weight classes, but Lomachenko never fought anyone, certainly never beat anyone, with the type of physical advantages over him that Alexander Usyk has defeated at heavyweight. And Alexander Usyk, of course, perfect at cruiserweight, perfect at heavyweight, no blemishes on his record. So that, I think, to a lot of people, was a surprise in the long term, that Usyk ended up being the better fighter, proving himself to be the better fighter than his smaller, more nimble stablemate, Vasyl Lomachenko. Stylistically, they're, of course, very similar. Usyk was trained by Lomachenko's dad for a long time. What made Usyk better than Lomachenko? I want to say physical strength and maybe mental toughness. Not that Lomachenko ain't mentally tough, but there are levels to this. And Usyk's mental toughness is like a Vander Holyfield level. You know what I mean? He's like incredibly tough mentally. Whereas Vasyl Lomachenko, in the Teofimo Lopez fight at least, was wary of Lopez's power in the early going, and he wasn't as aggressive as we normally see from him. So he remained on the outside, getting outboxed basically, until he sensed Lopez's power was diminishing, and that's when he stepped on the gas and went on the front foot. Usyk would not have allowed that. He's going to go in there against a big puncher like Daniel Dubois or Anthony Joshua, and he's going to be sticking it on them regardless of their power. So I think that was one of the differences, was just Usyk's mindset was a bit more hardcore than Lomachenko. But of course, Lomachenko, fantastic fighter, great to watch. The footwork, the angles, the punch output, the way that he would overwhelm opponents. Because Lomachenko was never a massive puncher. He had decent power, but the speed and the angles and the consistency with which he attacked you was what managed to break you down. You would keep up with him for a few rounds, but after 3 or 4, it's almost like the opponent starts getting dizzy. Their eyes are looking at this guy's feet, but also his hands, his head. He's moving all over the place, and he's punching at you constantly. And as I say, they just get overwhelmed by it, and that's when Lomachenko was able to force stoppages or beat people comprehensively on points. So yeah, great career, multi-weight world champion. He had some great wins along the way, and yeah, great addition to the sport of boxing over the past decade, however long ago it was that he turned pro. Obviously lost those 3 fights. The first fight he lost was in his second pro bout to Orlando Salido. That was like a baptism of fire to professional boxing, because Salido, a very dirty fighter, gave him a nice warm welcome to the pro game. All that sportsmanship that you see in the amateur game, yeah, forget about all that. This is going to be rough and tumble. That's what Vasyl Lomachenko learned in that second pro bout. Obviously, because he was so advanced as an amateur, he was fighting the likes of Salido far earlier than a normal fighter would, who wasn't as dominant in the amateurs and experienced in the amateurs as Vasyl Lomachenko. So yeah, lost to Salido, went on to lose to Teofimo Lopez, already mentioned that one, and then eventually dropped a contentious decision to Devin Haney. I didn't think it was the horrible robbery that some people were making it out to be. I thought it was a genuinely close fight. Could have gone either way, but Devin Haney managed to take it. So yeah, that's Vasyl Lomachenko, retiring from the sport of boxing. What do you guys think?